This is not a review. Feature Focus is a discussion around a specific feature or set of features in a game that I like, how those features work, and what makes them special. Today, Sea of Thieves and sailing a damn pirate ship. Out in the wild, there's a fair bit of criticism surrounding Sea of Thieves because some folks got the impression that it would have a heavier narrative than it does. I'll grant that though, as the initial trailer certainly gave that impression to some extent. However, without belaboring the point, even without narrative, there's a lot of fun to be had in the game, especially with friends. Sea of Thieves is an open-world co-op and PvP pirate game. You spawn at an outpost with your pirate ship moored at the dock, any friends spawning with you at the same outpost, or just by your lonesome pirate self. Outposts are where you buy cosmetic variants of weapons, clothing, and tools, as well as buying the various missions, which can be anything from gathering chickens and transporting them to hunting for buried treasure. In all of this, your ship is the centerpiece of the gameplay experience, and there are a lot of systems specific to the ship which make using it so much fun that even without a story narrative or single-player campaign, it's still a great experience. The bulk of the gameplay takes place on the ship itself, and you get to control the vast majority of what you would expect on a ship. But for some reasons I'll explain as we go, even what would normally be considered busy work is still fun. To start with, here's how the ship works. It controls like a car with no tires driving on ice. There are a couple of different size ships, but the core of each is effectively the same. Each ship has 4 basic systems that cover movement. The ship's wheel, which turns the rudder left and right, as you would expect, with the ship turning harder the further you spin the wheel. The sail length, which you can raise or lower depending on how much speed you're looking for. The sail direction, which can be turned left or right to gather the most wind, and finally the anchor, which after a few seconds grinds your movement to a creaking halt. If you've ever been on a sailboat, you know how much effort is required for a single person to manage everything on a good-sized boat, let alone a ship. Each of these systems is as simple as can be. Click F to interact with each and move your sail around, or push the bar to raise the anchor. They get a bit more complex on the large 4-player ship, which has multiple sails and an anchor that'll take an age and a day for one person to bring up, but the basics of how it functions is exactly the same otherwise. So that covers movement, sorta. You can also look skyward to see the wind direction, which is handy in figuring out where you should be pointing your sails for maximum exit velocity. The ship's wheel also has a mounted compass, but no map of any kind. So you need to have figured out your direction looking at the captain's map located below deck before you sail anywhere. This is one of many little details which really push the freedom angle of the game. By putting the map below deck, regardless of ship type, Rare is essentially forcing every player to become comfortable with the idea of choosing a heading and being able to let the ship just go for a while. Much like a real sailboat, you don't need to be on the helm 100% of the time, just when corrections to the heading are needed. So you sort out supplies, load cannons, climb up to the crow's nest with your eyeglass to look for potentially hostile ships on the horizon, or can wander below deck to look at the map. And let me tell you, when you're first learning how to pilot this ship that maneuvers like a massive duck balloon in a snowstorm, you're going to be below deck a lot, especially when close to land or in any kind of ship combat. You see, your ship can spring a leak if you get shot with a cannon below the waterline, or if you get a wee bit too close to a rock. The moment of chaos when you realize you've struck land, have to turn away quickly, drop anchor, and rush below deck to bail the water out is stressful as all hell the first time it happens. And the second. While it may not be the most amazing tech in the game industry, I do think it's necessary to point out how great the water looks, especially when it gets swept up in a storm with the sail rippling in the wind and the deck of your ship rocking from side to side like it's just learning how to breakdance. The freedom of movement allows you to choose your path, and some paths are far more intense than others, especially if another ship follows you into the storm. As mentioned, that freedom of movement while driving your ship around the ocean also involves combat. The basic ship has 2 cannons, one on either side, with the bigger ship having more. If you're playing solo and get into a ship-to-ship battle, you have to steer your ship as well as run to the cannons to load, aim, and fire them. This involves some degree of stress on the player, or at least it did for me, as things do get hectic very quickly, but it was manageable, and consequences for dying aren't too bad so long as you're not hoarding a bunch of treasure chests at the time. And of course, the experience is similar, but different with a larger group on the massive galleon. You'll need to coordinate as the map is further away below deck. The anchor takes a long time to raise by yourself, and you have to manage multiple sails, but the same freedom and fun can be had. Everything about sailing in Sea of Thieves feels good, and very little of it happens so often as to feel like a chore. And all of this is without even considering that you do have objectives to complete in the various missions available in the game. Despite the complex simplicity of it all, with so many individually basic tasks vying for your attention, there is something very zen about the whole experience. You can take your ship wherever you want, at whatever speed you want. You can sail through a storm or around it. Stop to explore an island just for giggles while drinking yourself stupid and playing music along the way. The sailing feels very free, similar, but even better than something like Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Even something as simple as dousing your lanterns and coasting without an intended heading at night, with nothing but the sound of the waves, is enjoyable and something that I didn't anticipate being good. The ship itself can also be customized because of course it can. So far, there are a bunch of different options from sails to hulls to figureheads, all cosmetic. And it's been confirmed that the only DLC to be sold will be cosmetic, so you can make your ship look great and match the look of your pirate or go ridiculous just as easily if that's what you want. The thing about all of these systems interacting together, though, is that if you were to describe a video game where someone has to manage sail angle, repair the ship hull, get friends together to raise the anchor, monitor wind, and navigate by map and compass, the first thought for most people is unlikely to be fun. However, in each case, while maintaining some semblance of realism for the simple fact that each system exists, each in their own right is extremely easy to manage, even for the uninitiated sailor. It takes very little time to figure out that pointing your sails in the direction the wind is blowing makes you go faster. Patching a hole in the ship only takes a few seconds once you figure out where the water's coming in from. Bailing the water out with your bucket in the small ship by yourself only takes a few bucket loads, and with a crew on a big ship can be emptied quickly with teamwork. All of this is why I felt that sailing specifically as a feature set in Sea of Thieves was and is so much fun. But I've left my favorite feature for last because while fun solo, it's far more fun in a group. Every Sea of Thieves pirate carries a couple of instruments with them on their journey, with hopefully more being added in the future. An accordion and a hurdy-gurdy, the best and goofiest instrument name in existence. Apparently there was a fiddle in concept art, but it's not in the game as yet. There are a number of shanties, or piratey songs in the game that, when you're playing in a group, it gets even better. The first person to start playing randomly gets a song, and as the other players start to play along, their instruments overlay perfectly to add some volume and sound variety to the same song because of the unique sound of each instrument. So you can have your whole crew sailing through a rough storm with lightning in the background, one person on the wheel, and the other three keeping morale high with some fancy pirate music all playing in sync with each other. My only complaint is that they need more songs, preferably including the Monkey Island theme, and more instruments. Wouldn't it be cool to have a giant organ you could sit down to play on the big galleon, just like Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean? Feature focus is a detailed breakdown of why I think a specific feature or feature set in a game needs to be called out for being awesome. Sailing in Sea of Thieves is wonderfully implemented, regardless of what you think of the rest of the title itself. It all works as a great cohesive structure, granting a sense of freedom in the open ocean that I've never had before in a game. For reference, the game's out on Xbox One and Windows 10 on March 20th. If you're interested in discussing game features in depth like this with me and other gamers, there's a link in the description to my Discord channel where this kind of talk is a regular thing. My name is Tarmack, and I hope that the feature focus on sailing in Sea of Thieves was helpful to you. Thanks very much for watching.